Well, we're on the subject of conserving what is left of America's freedom. Uh, we're talking about conserving freedom by default if we're talking about conserving it. And that's an illegitimate position because there's no way to strive toward conserving something unless you can define what it is you're trying to conserve. And if you can clearly define it as an abstract ideal that we don't currently have, then you're not trying to conserve any sort of physical current state of things. You're really striving towards that ideal because that ideal contains abstract components that don't currently exist in material reality. And so you can say, all right, if you call yourself a conservative, then what sort of actions are you trying to conserve in the domain of protecting your right to own and carry a firearm? There are like 8 or 12 states right now that claim openly that you don't have to get a permit of any kind in order to carry a concealed firearm, right? So those are the only states that could even slightly lay claim to upholding the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment says that the right to keep and bear means carry, arms shall not be infringed. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, this is independent of the fact that there's a statement that is a statement that is an explanatory clause before that in the Second Amendment that says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed is a shall not. That is an instruction. And that is an instruction that is independent of any other facts, but the Second Amendment decides to give you some facts, just in case you're disorganized, unintelligent, uneducated, and, well, stupid. Those facts are that a well-regulated militia is necessary to the security of a free state. And that's true. But that's also very interesting in the current climate, because our government has they have initiated force against every significant militia that exists, and every single militia that stated that they understood why the Second Amendment existed over the last 10 or 20 years has been attacked by the United States government. And some people say that there's evidence that those attacks were legitimate, and I don't really believe that that holds up to any scrutiny, given that oftentimes they were charged with the all-purpose charge of conspiracy to violate federal laws and nothing else, or they were convicted of nothing else other than conspiracy. Well, if you have a surprise party for your spouse, then you've participated in a conspiracy. And what does the term conspiracy mean? Is there implicitly and inherently injury and intent to injure anyone in conspiracy? No, there really is not. There could be, I suppose, but it's not inherent in the term conspiracy. So we've got to be very careful about writing people off when they've been convicted of or convicted by laws that shouldn't exist in the first place. And this really shows the cowardly and disorganized character of the American people. They're willing to so callously and casually write off people who have been sent to prison, and especially for illegitimate reasons. And I would say that that's probably most of the 2.1 million people in federal prison right now. We have the highest percentage per capita of people in prison of any nation. And let's think about that. Are we the most evil people on the planet? I don't think so. I don't think that there's anything to indicate that we have more criminal tendencies here than anywhere else on the planet. But our government has criminalized more actions. And that's a real problem. That's basically throwing the rule of law and any chance for the legitimate rule of law out the window. And the primary maxim the fundamental statement of law as it pertains to human beings, or law that could cause a flourishing human society, the fundamental concept in Western civilization's legal theory is that there should be equality under the law. Okay? Not equality of outcome, of material wealth, or any sort of material outcome necessarily, but the law should treat everyone equally. And it doesn't right now. There's no rational way that you could say that the law treats everyone equally. The drug laws were designed to not treat people equally on the basis of race. You can look back at the congressional testimony, and it contains files from a raging bigoted simpleton named Harry J. Anslinger, who's the father of American drug prohibition. That's kind of his claim to fame. And he said, you know, statements, if I'm not quoting it word for word, I'm very close. The primary reason for the outlaw of marijuana is its effect on the degenerate races. Well, if we don't currently believe that there are degenerate races, then why is marijuana still illegal? And the Harrison Narcotics Act of 1914 is very similar, and it outlawed heroin as a preemptive racist measure to treat Chinese people as actually inferior under the law, because you know, there was already widespread heroin use, widespread opiate use in China, and that was the big hysteria that was being drummed up, you know, creating alleged fear of Chinese immigrants. You know, so equality under the law can't exist if there's a law that, to be enforced, would require 50 million people to be put in prison, because that's, you know, like 49.5 million would be if it was literally 15% of people had used marijuana, and more than 15% of people have used marijuana. So let's ask this question. Let's see if so-called conservatives are intellectually honest about what they want to conserve in society. Do they think that any of their acquaintances who ever in their life tried marijuana should be sent to prison with the maximum sentence possible? Because if they don't, keep in mind, there are lots of people who just weren't as fortunate, who then were targeted by the law because they lacked the means to purchase a legal defense, a high-quality legal defense. And so if we're putting people in prison because they lack the financial ability at some point in their life to purchase a high-quality legal defense from a bar licensed attorney. And there's another interesting thing. The bar licensing aspect. Technically, if you have a bar license, then you have privileged access to the law. Well, everyone is supposed to be able to understand the law. The law is supposed to be incredibly simple and easy to understand, so that everybody knows whether or not they're breaking a law or not. And there are 5,000 things, according to author of the book Lawman, Sean Hopwood. That's SHONHOPWOOD. Sean Hopwood points out that there are 5,000 things that can put you in federal prison. Do you know what all those things are? If you don't know what all those things are, then, and keep in mind that even bar licensed attorneys don't know what all these things are. They don't know all the things that people can be sent to prison for, and they are, you know, people who have a training in the minutia of generally some certain area of the law, because even the specialists in the law cannot keep track of all of the federal laws that exist. So that inherently has created a situation where even the people who are unequal under the law, even the people who have an advantage or are above the law in some way, even they are at a disadvantage under the chaotic surplus of laws that we currently have. So what is there really to conserve in a system like this, where, if you are being honest, you'd say that 90% of the people in the prisons should be emptied out? And so there's nothing left to conserve, people. don't call yourself a conservative.